What up? What up? What up?
Hey, Josh.
Hey, it's time for a podcast.
How are you, man?
Apparently, we're starting with crazy stat of the week.
Oh, we are.
We'll do that
We
later.
are. There we go.
Welcome to anyone that's listening or watching. We've got a good little show for you today. We're going to do our usual rundown, and then a big portion of this show is the history of Grand Slam in Rock Hill. So, Michael, will you do the rundown? How about?
I will. Hey, what's up, JP? Thanks for checking in. We are going to do a quick rundown. Obviously, we're going to start off with the opening rip. New in the shop. Behind the counter is going to be the history of Grand Slam. Hobby and listener questions. Hopefully, anybody listening out there, drop your questions in the comment section and we'll get to those. Card from the vault. What's coming to the shop next week and upcoming events, and then crazy stat of the week. So what were you about to say, Josh?
The card from the vault, a little something different tonight.
It is something different from both of us. So hopefully that's it'll be interesting to those you guys tuning in. So did you have a good weekend?
I did. Two sons had birthdays, so we had 2 birthday parties this weekend, and the guys at the shop covered for me on Saturday. So much love to them. and then I used some of Sunday to recover from that, so it was good.
2 birthdays in one weekend, man.
You were in another card shop this weekend, right?
I was in Charleston and in another card shop, and I tell you, folks, when you travel the country, look in other card shops. You will be grateful that Grand Slam, if you're close enough to the area, you're going to be grateful that Grand Slam is your local LCS. Not everybody's card shops are put together like Grand Slam's is. It was interesting. It wasn't a bad experience. It's just it was the only. Now I know, Josh, sometimes competition gets the best of us, but competition is also good for the consumer.
For sure. Yep.
This is the only card shop in the area that I visited, and you could tell by some of the prices. It's get out there.
They're spoiled. No, I'm just kidding.
It was it's always interesting. You compare shops, and there's different mentalities to different shops. And so maybe we're just, like I said, we're blessed to have Grand Slam here in the area. So
appreciate that. And we wouldn't be here if it weren't for good customers. So it's a team effort. So Charlie.
What's up, Charlie?
Charlie knows some of the history of Grand Slam. So Charlie, I hope I get this history right. And it should be good.
JP,
Michael almost got me a Tom Brady autograph card. He texted me a picture and asked me if I wanted it for $200, and I was like, yes. And then text me again when you actually have it in your hands. And then it was 0. So it was actually 2,000, and it had Chad Pennington on it. So I went ahead and passed.
Yes. So JP, look, I'm not going to trash another shop. I'm just going to say that it was different. Now the pricing there, I tell you, it was just doing the quick math in my head. It was on some product. It was as high as it was probably close to 35-40% higher there on some of the hobby stuff. But like I said, I'm not going to trash another shop. It wasn't a bad experience. It was just different. Yep. So, anyway, the opening rip, let's go ahead and get started. And neither one of us are huge into college basketball. I know that's a bit of a bad thing being in the Tar Heel state, especially with the Tar Heels taking on Kansas tonight. So let us know who you think is going to win tonight and what the score is, because we're going to need some sort of a tiebreaker. Josh, you mentioned in the pregame that just to sweeten the pot a bit? What are you willing to do for our listeners?
Yeah, so I say pick your winner for tonight's game in the chat. We will record everyone that guessed correctly. We'll enter those names into a drawing, and we'll do like $20 break credit in the break page, or $20 store credit if you're not a breaker. So $20 on the line. All you got to do is pick a team. That's all you got to do. Throw it in the chat. You got a 50-50 shot. And I'll do another live Facebook video of pulling the winner. We'll randomize it. So
nice.
one vote per person, obviously.
Yes, one vote per person. All right. So in the opening rip, let me just share my screen here. I don't know if you guys heard, but Fanatics signed a deal with the WWE on March 28th. That's what it says here, March 28th. Now, Josh, I found this interesting because I remember back in October, the WWE signed an exclusive partnership with Panini. What say you, Mr. Wrestling fan?
Well, I'm not a hardcore wrestling fan unless you talk WWF. You go back to the Attitude Era. That was
Right.
I still watch that stuff all the time. But it looks as though Fanatics is that train barreling down the tracks, and they're gonna just gobble up anything in their path. And like, I'm okay with that as long as they do it right. But that's my take. It's going to be interesting what happens to Panini when all this dust settles in a few years. Are they going to be relegated to a company like Leaf that does some nice product that's unlicensed? Are they going to get bought by Fanatics? Are they going to ride off into the sunset with a bunch of money from Fanatics?
Yeah, we talked about this before Fanatics announced that they were taking over the basketball, and the football licenses. A-Rod, Alex Rodriguez, and a group of investors were set to put an offer in to buy Panini for $4 billion. And once Fanatics came in and said that they were going to secure the licenses, I think football and basketball, they take those down in 2026. That deal evaporated. So it'll be interesting to see. Like you said, they're the oncoming train. They're the 800-pound gorilla. And, if they keep taking these licenses and just giving these leagues or organizations deals that they can't pass up, I don't know. I mean, if a $4 billion deal evaporates because of the initial deal, how much value are they going to take out of Panini before Panini says uncle and sells? And do they even need Panini? They've got Topps. It's not like they need a manufacturer anymore. So it'll be interesting. So JP has chimed in. And I would love to see if this has legs here, that there's an antitrust suit coming. Yeah, it's who knows? We just mentioned it. When there's just one card shop in an area, you tend to see some inflated pricing. If there's one card manufacturer in the world and we are at their mercy.
Yeah. They said, as long as they do it right, I'm all for it. They got to do it right. I really think, I guess maybe this would be the hot take. I think they just let Panini. I wouldn't buy the name Panini necessarily. I mean, buying Topps' name was smart, but I think you just let Panini flounder, or Panini's gonna have UFC. I mean, they're gonna
have UFC, and the Mint Collective was just this past weekend, and UFC was a big part of that. They've got soccer. They've got some other things. I'd have to go to the Panini website. I think they've got some non-sport stuff like Fortnite, things like that. But I don't know. Initially when I heard that Fanatics was buying Topps, they basically had a blank check. I think they offered Topps. They offered Major League Baseball 10 times what Topps is paying them. And I'm sure there was already a whole bunch of zeros in front of that to begin with. So it's crazy. So who knows? I thought the timing was interesting because WrestleMania was just this past weekend. So they announced this. WrestleMania happens. And then, and who knows? We'll talk about a UFC, not a UFC, but a WWE product that's launching that's going to be available either this week or next week. So we'll see. That's probably a pretty good segue. Hey, what's up, Matt? That's a pretty good segue into new in the shop. So what's new in the shop this week, Josh?
So it's not cheap and it's extremely limited, but Prism WWE, we'll get a little bit of that in. So Donruss clearly already launched. That's in the shop. We got some of that left, and Topps Inception Baseball is in the shop. We've got a little bit of that left. We've got some fill-ins on more Heritage Baseball. We keep selling out of that, probably because the price is right. So that's coming. Prism Draft Basketball and Stars and Stripe Baseball is this Friday. So we will have both of those. And then we've got some Pokemon fill-in product and a couple new things that are releasing on the Pokemon side. That'll be Friday. So Friday, you're looking at Prism Draft Basketball, WWE, Heritage Fill-In, Stars and Stripes Baseball, and more Pokemon product because we cannot keep it on the shelf.
Good for you, dude. Let's unpack the WWE wrestling product. I don't know if you have it in front of you. That's a hefty price to that, right? Give me the range there. I know that you can't.
Yeah, $800 a box probably is what I think the market is. I don't know.
Let me pull that up.
Sure yet. I haven't even looked at it. I just know we have such little bit of it coming. We don't sell a lot of it, especially at that price. I was going to be very careful.
Yeah, let me just see. 2021. Oh no, that's the 2022. And sorry, clicking and dead silence is always good for podcasts, right, guys?
I can blab if I.
No, let me just take a look to see if there's the checklist. Yeah, so I'm not. It looks like the same sort of thing. There's going to be a first off the line box. There's your same white sparkles, blues, oranges, blue shimmers. That's going to be first off the line.
A couple autos per box, probably.
Yeah, let's just see what the auto. Steve Austin is there. Undertaker is an auto. Wow, Hulk Hogan auto.
Nice.
Let's see. Undertaker, Triple H is going to be having an autograph in there. So there's some pretty big names.
Is Shockmaster going to be in there?
Shockmaster.
Oh, are you familiar with Shockmaster?
Shock.
Matt Roper's got to be Shockmaster. So you have to do this after the podcast in your own leisure time. But if you YouTube the Shockmaster's debut, it is quite possibly the cringiest, most hilarious thing you'll ever see. Matt Roper, if you know what I'm talking about, agree with me.
Now you've stirred the interest. Now I gotta go in and take a look. All right, so that's new in the shop. Not a lot. I think it's coming. There's like a lot of pent up stuff that's been delayed, and now it's going to start coming in this spring. So be on the lookout for that.
Oh yeah, big month for football. I've looked down the line. Yeah. So whoever said Isaac Yankum, they said Isam Yankum, but Isaac Yankum is what they meant. And yeah, there you go. Shockmaster, the greatest failed debut ever. It really is. Someone at Grand Slam, one of our customers told me one time, we pulled it up on YouTube. It was hilarious. But whoever said Isaac Yankum, it just says Facebook user. So put your name with that, because I think you also chose Kansas up above, and I want to make sure you get in the drawing. So whoever said Isaac Yankum, please type your actual name. I'm sure I know who you are if you just type your name. What is your take? It's Daigle. All right, Peter. Your take on non-sports cards. I kind of have a feeling I know where you'll go with this. What do you like them, love them, or hate them?
I think it's the hidden gem. If you look up prices on, I don't know, we went and saw, my wife and I saw Morbius this weekend.
Okay.
Great movie, by the way.
Interesting.
Great movie. But the new Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them, or it's like the Harry Potter spinoff trailer, and it made me think of there have been a couple podcasts talking about the original Harry Potter cards that came out. And there's a whole generation. Harry Potter was spread out over 10 years, that whole series. So there's an entire generation when that came out that are between 26 and 36 that love Harry Potter, that are getting into the workforce, that will have disposable income.
Nerds. Just kidding.
Well, yes. As we I know.
As I have a Joker shirt on.
Exactly. But I think non-sports cards, if you can get in there and find them, between Harry Potter, between Game of Thrones, which a spinoff is coming, all that is about to blow up.
And you could think about it this way. That could be kind of our Star Wars / Pokemon, down the road. Who knows? Our kids grow up and they become our age and they look back, and something to think about.
Yeah. I mean, and it could be pretty obscure. I remember watching before school, I would watch this show called Robotech, and I loved it. And there's if there was a set of Robotech cards out there, which I'm sure there is, I would buy it. Now,
that's like me with He-Man.
Absolutely. I mean, there is and you've said it on this podcast, there's always somebody that collects something.
Yep.
So I think non-sports cards, if you can start dabbling in those, not a bad play. Especially if it's something if you know the characters, if you know what's important to people that follow that show or that series, there's no reason why you can't look into that. So
yep. Matt Roper, if you saw the comment I pinned, that's what we're doing. If predict tonight's winner, and we'll enter the winners into a drawing for a $20 credit. And Matt Roper agrees with you. Robotech was awesome. I don't know why I've heard of it.
Was awesome. It's this anime show, and it was like 3 or 4 seasons. It was fantastic. Great storytelling. And I think I was probably 11, 12 years old. And then Netflix carried it 10 years ago. I don't know if it's on Netflix anymore, but
it's on YouTube, I bet. Or somewhere. It's somewhere.
It's
Crunchyroll, or isn't Crunchyroll? Isn't that a website?
Crunchyroll?
Yeah, it's an anime website. It's got like everything.
Now I'm hungry. Thanks. I appreciate it.
I think it's Crunchyroll.
All right. That was new in the shop.
Yeah.
And a little bit of what was left of the opening rip. But I think it's time to get into what we've been probably waiting for this whole first season of the podcast, is a little bit of a history of the shop, Josh. So I'm going to turn it over to you. I'm going to there's going to be a bit of like a slideshow. You could use this as a guide for what you want to talk about, or you could just let it run in the background while you talk.
Yep, I'll probably touch on each picture as we go through when it lines up with where I'm at in the history and the story. But there will be some, hopefully Charlie, if Charlie's still listening. Charlie's been a longtime patron of Grand Slam, and he can correct me on anything that might be wrong or just nod in agreement. But I reached out to the original owner of Grand Slam this week. His name is Jim Bopp, and asked him if he wanted to be on the show or if he'd rather just give me some info. And I know he's a little bit more of a private person, so I thought the info would probably be more comfortable for him, and he agreed. So he gave me some awesome info, and maybe still one day we can get him on the show. Great guy, and he is the one that started Grand Slam back in January of 1987. So get your popcorn out. I'm going to go down the history of Grand Slam. I'm going to start with the information that Jim gave me, and then there's been 3 owners, and we'll bring you up to speed on how we came about, and there'll be some stories along the way and some pictures along the way, like what you see on the screen now. But he said he started it in 1987 by himself and his brother. His brother's name is Mark Anders. It was in a 600 square foot room connected to a beauty shop on Oakland Avenue. It was in the Old Town Plaza, apparently. So 1987.
And Josh, that's about half the size of the current shop, correct?
Yeah, probably even smaller than half if I had to. Yeah, so really small. Ed's watching. Sweet. Yeah, come back, Ed. So that's where it started. They both had full-time jobs. So Jim's brother Jeff would open the store at 3:00 in the afternoon after school. And then Jim and Mark would come in after work, and they would stay open till 8:00. At that time, it was just a baseball card shop, at least that portion of it. So he said in the summer of 1989, he bought his brother out, and he became the sole owner. He also gave me some cool stories too. But when Michael Jordan hit the NBA, the hobby began expanding into basketball, and we kind of know that, like, that's when the hobby took off around that era, and Jordan was so crucial in that. He said that the hobby began expanding into basketball, football, and hockey cards. In the fall of 1989, basketball and football cards caught fire fast. In a span of 2 weeks, Jim bought all 3 sets, 86, 87, and 88 Fleer basketball. So that's Jordan's rookies, 86 Fleer. So he bought 86, 87, and 88 Fleer basketball for $12.
$12.
The next day, he sold them for $30. That's a nice little quick flip. 2 days later, he bought another run for $80. Sold them a couple days later for $300. So you can see it was catching fire. He said a week later, he was paying $500 for just the 86 Fleer set. So that goes to show you what Jordan did in that short amount of time for the hobby. And now you'd die to buy that set for $500. If anything. So
and not to cut you off, but $500 in 1980, like, what was it? 1989?
89, yeah.
I mean, for a hobby box, I mean, you've got product on your shelves now that's $500, and we all sweat about that. Yeah. Imagine the prices back then going from 12,
yeah, $12
to 500
in a very short time. So.
That's bananas.
So he said, so we're going to fast forward to 1992. He quit his job to focus, I would assume, to focus on just Grand Slam. He moved the shop to a larger location. Could be the current spot it is now. I know it moved again, and maybe if Charlie knows the answer to that, but it's been where it's at now 2 different times. So he moved it to a larger spot. The hours became 10 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And when we took over, those were the current hours, 10 to 7. Closed Sunday and Monday. We'll get into that in just a little bit. Jim began a comic book subscription service and it grew to 1,500 comics per month very quickly. So this is at a time where comics were apparently exploding as well. Grand Slam was the top buyer for Georgia Music in 1998 and Baseline Sports in 2000, and he was awarded an all expenses paid trip to Hawaii for the National Baseball Card Convention each year. So the amount of cards they were apparently buying earned him that pretty sweet honor. So
could you imagine? Could you imagine being a dealer and bringing your cards to Hawaii?
Fun.
Yeah.
To check those bags.
Yeah, no kidding.
Or you just leave the cards behind and you go enjoy the show.
Right.
So I'd always heard regulars had told me in the shop that Jim had Brooks Robinson in the store one time to sign. So I'm like, oh, that's cool. Here's kind of a little history behind that. Michael Jordan's brother, Larry, was the Upper Deck representative for the shop. So he was responsible for bringing Brooks Robinson into the shop for an autograph session. Brooks signed over 500 autographs and got his picture taken with everyone. And I know guys that come into the shop that still talk about that to this day.
Wow.
The day that Brooks Robinson was down at the shop signing autographs. So he said, kind of in summary, they would jump on any fad that came their way. Beanie Babies, Pokemon, Yu-Gi-Oh, those types of things. In fact, whenever someone brings in Beanie Babies or we're at a show and they bring Beanie Babies by and I know nothing about it, I'll actually send them Jim Bop's way because I know Jim knows more about that. And then some fun information over the years that Jim had it. He owned T205 and T206 Ty Cobbs and Mathewson's, Silk Cobbs and Mathewson's, T206 Maggie Error, Gowdy Babe Ruths and Lou Gehrig's, Joe DiMaggio rookie play ball cards, 51 Bowman, 52 Topps Mickey Mantles, and Michael Jordan rookies. So awesome cards had come through the shop during that time. After 22 years, Jim Bop sold the store to Rick and Kelly Loveless. That was in January of 2009. So Jim Bop, the original owner, had it from 87 until 2009. And I think ended up, I don't want to speak for that. I know I believe he works for Coke now, Coca-Cola. So thank you, Jim, if you're watching or listening, for giving me that info. I've got lots more questions for you. And next time I see you, I'll ask you all those for a future show. But so from 2009 until 2017, Rick and Kelly Loveless owned the shop. Rick passed away, and so I don't have the ability to reach out to him and get information during this period. I have touched base with customers that were regulars that were through the shop at that time. I believe Rick passed away. I don't know the date. Charlie, if you're watching and maybe throw it in the chat, but it would have been, I think, around 2015, 2016. So correct me if I'm wrong there, but Dennis was running it for Kelly after Rick passed away, and Dennis was the one running it when I came through the door. So the history of how we came about. If anyone knows me, they know I'm a tech guy. I love cell phones. Cell phones are kind of my passion outside of sports and cards. So I worked for AT&T for 5 years selling cell phones, and I was in Amarillo, Texas, where I started. That's where we lived. And then in 2015, we moved from Amarillo to Rock Hill, and I transferred with AT&T to the Rock Hill store. I worked at that store selling cell phones, which I love to do. And then around that time, AT&T bought DirecTV, and they had this monster push to turn us into DirecTV salespeople, and I despised it. They had no longer any interest in selling cell phones because they sold themselves. And so their shift was really DirecTV. I despised it. I got transferred from the Rock Hill store to the Chester, South Carolina store. And I'm going to try and not say anything bad about Chester, South Carolina, but It was like the Twilight Zone, and I hated it. Met some great people, but it didn't take me very long there to sabotage my own AT&T career and get myself fired on purpose. But mainly they allowed me to quit. Let's put it that way. So I made sure the day we had that meeting that I left that meeting not working there. Let's just put it that way. So I had been in retail for many years up until that point, and I had never had the Christmas holiday season off. And so I said, we've got just enough money to scrape by until January 1st. So I'm going to enjoy Christmas and Thanksgiving without retail. Black Friday, I don't have to work it. I can enjoy my family and the Christmas season. So my plan was January 1st, I'm going to start looking for a job. At the same time, my older brother was moving from Boston, Massachusetts, down to Charlotte, Rock Hill area. And he has done some software developing and started a few companies. And so he had a little disposable income and was also unemployed at the time on purpose and was not looking for a job, but I was. I drew my brother-in-law's name for Christmas that year, and I know he liked Magic the Gathering. And so I asked my sister what would be a good gift for him, and she said, get him some Magic the Gathering stuff. He loves that. I had driven by Grand Slam many times and seen the Magic the Gathering and Pokemon signs on the wall and always wanted to go in there. And I thought, oh, this will be a perfect excuse to go into Grand Slam, check it out, and I can get I love supporting small local businesses, and that was just another excuse. So I actually went to Target, took a picture of the Magic the Gathering wall, sent it to my sister, and I said, would he like stuff like this? Because I know nothing about this. And she said, yeah, stuff like that. So I'm like, all right. So I go into Grand Slam. My wife is with me. She just drops me off. I said, I'm just going to run in here real quick and buy some Magic the Gathering stuff. So I went in. Dennis was working. Charlie, if you're in the chat, Charlie was actually sitting at a table sorting some cards, and I picked out my Magic the Gathering stuff. And I'll never forget, I told Dennis, who was running the store, I said, I went to Target and saw what I needed, but I wanted to come here and buy it because I like supporting small local businesses, and I don't care if you're more expensive than Target. And he said, oh no, we're much cheaper than Target. And I thought, oh, this is even more perfect. So I went to, I picked out a bunch of Magic the Gathering stuff. I bought it while he was ringing me up. We were just chatting, and I looked at the front door, and there was a big for sale sign on the window. I said, well, what's with the for sale sign on the window? And he said, oh, the business is for sale. I said, really? And he said, yeah, the previous owner passed away, and I've been running the shop for his wife, and she's looking to sell it. I said, okay, well, how much are you asking? And he took a little notepad, wrote down a number, slid it across the counter to me. And I looked at it and I said, is that for everything? He said, that's for everything. I said, okay, well, and it was much more money than I had as a laid off AT&T employee. But I thought, me and my older brother, had talked in the past about maybe doing him kind of funding a retail store for me, because I have a retail background. I don't like working for anyone. And so that was kind of where I said, okay, hold that thought. So we went out. I told my wife, I said, take me over to my brother's house. So she buzzed me over there. I went in and talked to him, gave him my whole sales pitch. And it was kind of like, do you know anything about sports cards? No, I haven't even collected one since the 90s. Do we know anything about TCG? That would be your Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. No, I don't know anything about that. But I know retail. I know customers. I'm not stupid. And it wasn't like life-changing amount of money. It was a nice price, but it wasn't life-changing. So it was for me. It wasn't life-changing for him. So he said, all right, well, let's go talk to him. So long story short, we drove down there. We talked a little bit more. And obviously Dennis needed to talk with Kelly since she officially owned it. And there were some hoops to jump through. One of those hoops to jump through is pictured in the one of the pictures here. His name is Jim Nichols, and you'll see him scrolling by right there. There's Jim Nichols. So Jim was a Pokemon professor, and he was one of the big reasons, along with some other guys, some that are still at the store now, they got Pokemon really up and rolling and gotten the store officially sanctioned. And he was about 6 months away from retirement and had talked to Kelly, from what I had gathered, that he would be interested in buying the shop once he had retired. I think the only holdup was that she was wanting to sell it now and not have to wait 6 months down the road. So there was a little bit of that. And I did say, hey, let this Jim guy know that I'm going to need some help with Pokemon. We would love to partner up with him and keep letting him do his thing there at the shop. And we would work together at this. And so maybe that was one of the things that kind of put us over the top, but we were able to come to an agreement. We purchased the shop. And so for the first few years of us owning Grand Slam, officially my brother owned it and I just managed the store. So people would ask me, I would say, my brother owns it, I run it. And in fact, so much so that most people didn't even seen my brother. You know, he's never down at the shop often. And he's just kind of the man behind the scenes as I would run. And I'd run, there's a picture of Jim, and that's my sister to the left, at one of our Pokemon pre-release tournaments. One of the nicest guys you ever meet. So just a couple months into, so we took the store over on Christmas of 2017. At that time, there was 2017 football product on the shelf. That would be Mahomes' rookie year. If you pinch and zoom in on some pictures that I have, you will see that those boxes are like $79, $69 per box for those Donruss optic boxes. You can just barely see them in that picture there, but that's what the counter looked like when we took the store over. And so we did something that was no secret. I told Kelly and them, we want to just take the shop and freshen it up and breathe some life into it and keep it rolling. This was at a time when card shops, unlike right now, weren't making a ton of money. And we just wanted to keep the tradition alive in Rock Hill. And so there were other buyers that were interested, that wanted to buy the store and liquidate it. They wanted to just buy all the fixtures. They just wanted to buy the inventory. We were the only ones that said, we want to come along, buy it right now, and just rock and roll and see if we can grow this thing. And so that was our sales pitch for ourselves. And that's kind of exactly what we did. So we immediately, started taking things apart and throwing things away and cleaning things up and reorganizing and painting. And this picture right here, this was a few days after we had owned it. This was the first card that a customer pulled that we took a picture of. And so this guy came in and bought 2017 triple threads. And there was the first picture that we took, the first card we took a picture of, a customer hit. And that was I thought a pretty sweet one. As I was gathering pictures up for the show, I saw that one. So I thought that's kind of historic. Is of the thousands of cards we've shown since then, that's the first one we've shown that a customer pulled. So there was a lot for us to learn. I'm thankful for many of the customers that held my hand along the way. I told people from day one, I said, I don't know anything about this business, but I'm here to help you, and I can ring you up, and I'm going to learn it along the way. And so 4 years later, that's what I've done. I'm still learning. Some other tidbits. So a couple months after we had owned the shop, Jim Nichols was at the shop on a Wednesday night. We were all hanging out kind of late. And there's Jim there. He left Grand Slam and was in a car accident on the way home and lost his life. That was a big shock to us. In the short time that we knew Jim, and anybody that knows Jim or knew him knew what kind of a guy he was. One of the best guys you ever meet. So much so, we barely knew him. And Linda, who was in the picture there, my sister, and Jason, my brother, who wasn't around the shop to see him a ton, but was still around a little bit, it greatly affected us, his passing. And so we did some things in honor of him shortly after. But we were caught with our pants down as it came to Pokemon, because you can't run sanctioned events without an actual professor. And so my sister there beside him would look over his shoulder at events to kind of learn the Pokemon ropes. And we were kind of like, what do? We don't know what to do. And so she stepped in, and Pokemon kind of fast tracked our sanctioning of her. And she became our Pokemon tournament organizer and got us back into being able to run Pokemon sanctioned events. Jim still has a big place in our hearts, and he even has a little spot in the store still. I'm telling you, for as little as we knew him, he had a great effect on us. And anybody that knows him, all the Pokemon guys and gals that come around, we still talk about Jim to this day. He was a great guy and will always be remembered. So along the way, there's some of the pre-release tournaments. As you can see, I started growing a beard when we bought the store. And as each picture went by, my beard, every Pokemon pre-release, for some reason, don't ask me why, I would take this picture. And the beard gets longer, the beard gets longer, until finally we had our 5th child and the baby kept pulling on it. I finally had enough. But when people would say, how long have you ran the store? I'd point to my beard and say, as long as this beard is, that's as long as we had it. I started growing it when we bought the store. So one fun fact, there was no bookkeeping before we bought the store. So when we went to sit down with the previous owners and say, can we look at the books? There was no books. And so we were uneducated, and to begin with, about the hobby, and then to go in, we really went in blindfolded and learned on the fly and made lots of mistakes. One mistake was which has probably cost us hundreds of thousands of dollars by now, but we didn't think to go direct with Topps or Panini at that time. We buy through a distributor, and the reason we didn't do it was because the distributor was always able to meet our needs. We were never in a position where we couldn't get product. And so as COVID happened and the business boomed and hobby shops popped up everywhere because there was money to be made, we kind of looked back and said, had we 3 years ago gone direct with Panini or Topps, we'd probably be sitting in a better boat right now. But we buy through a distributor, which is why if you're a local customer, our prices are sometimes a little tough, especially on retail product. We have to buy uncomfortably close to market price. And so we have the product there. Forgive us, sometimes the prices are high, but we've always been very competitive. And as COVID and that industry kind of settles down a little bit, our prices are starting to settle and get back to where they kind of were pre-COVID, where we were one of the best prices around. So that was probably the biggest shock when we would ask questions like, wait, you're telling me you buy this box for $85 and you sell it for $99? You know how many boxes you have to do to make rent? I mean, there's a lot to think about there. And here's an example of the difference between allocated and non-allocated product. Let's say a product sells for $100 and you get to buy it at $80. Okay, so you make 20%, $20 per box. Well, then prices go nuts after COVID, and those $100 boxes are now $500 boxes, but certain card shops are still getting that product for $80 allocated. So now you're buying it at 80 and selling it for 500. And if you can do that box after box, case after case, you can see why some card shops, guys that have been doing this for many years or have lots of allocations for me. I mean, I've had people through the stores. Oh, my uncle owns a card shop down in Florida. He became a millionaire during this pandemic because they were able to sell boxes for $500, $600. They're still paying $80 for them. So we still get some allocated product. We don't get as much as we used to. And we actually need those little shots in the arm on what little allocated product we get to keep the place rolling. So hopefully that makes sense to y'all and it kind of puts things in perspective for you. But we make our money on quantity over quality, and that's fine. That's a fun way to make it. So I wanted to touch base on the break page, the breaking group that we started. For a couple years prior, as breaking became a thing, people kept telling me, you need to start a break group. You need to start a break group. Well, no desire to do that, no free time to do that. The store was on the rise. Business was slowly rising. Customers all the time say things like, I bet you like this boom in the industry, huh? I say business was fine before it. We weren't doing the numbers we do now, but we were doing a good business, and it was much easier to do business because product was cheaper and So in some ways it made it harder to do business, and in some ways it was really good because there's this big spotlight on the sports card industry. So, but anyway, we had no breaking group, and I had people mention it to me and saying that I should do it. I dragged my feet and I dragged my feet. And then COVID came along, and I thought, we have to have a way to sell this product outside of the store, or we're going to go out of business, because the government's going to shut down businesses. We didn't know what it looked like. This pandemic was here or was coming. And so out of necessity and panic, we created this Facebook breaking group and just started adding people to it and spreading the word and adding people to it and talking about it in the store. And I spent money advertising it on Facebook to grow the group. And some of you watching now, Ed, maybe you're one of them that saw an advertisement through Facebook and joined the group. But the exact opposite happened. As you know, the industry boomed and breaking boomed. And so now we had a break group that had grown really quickly and was really wanting to do a lot of breaks. And then we had a store that was doing really well and product that was flying off the shelf. And so I had this dilemma of, I don't want to take product off the shelf from my local customers to sell it online or to break it online. And so we always toe that line of, do I pull it off the shelf and break it? I want to take care of both groups, the break group and the store itself. And so sometimes if you see me really heavily breaking for a week, it probably means that it's been a little quieter in the store and we need to generate some income. Or my wife's out of town. I got some more free time. That's the other one. But so that is a general overview. Oh, I also didn't. So January of this year, which would have been 3 months ago, I purchased the store from my brother. I bought him out of it. And so I am now the sole owner of the store. My brother is still behind the scenes if I need him, but I haven't needed him yet. And I wanted to be able to take maybe some risks that he wasn't comfortable with, and allows him to move on and do something different, and kind of keeps the shop in the family as well. And so I have 5 kids, so anytime you're supporting the store, you're supporting me and you're helping us put food on their table. So I promise you, no one's getting rich, despite what the rumors are. The store is doing well, and I have a good crew, and we have a blast. And I love the breaking group, and you're going to see more and more of that as we continue to grow. But that is an overall, look at the history of Grand Slam. There's a million inside stories and jokes and things that happened along the way. We're going to do an episode about theft in the store and maybe some of the break-in attempts and even one of the successful break-ins. We'll talk about that on an episode, but lots of stories. So the shop started in 1987. It changed ownership in 2009, changed ownership again in 2017, and it changed ownership one more time officially to me in 2022. So,
well, as somebody that has owned their own business, it's a scary thing. You go from having things that having a stream of income that is quote unquote steady, and it's coming in every month and things are very predictable. And you go from that to the roller coaster, right? And things are up and down and up and down. But I don't know who I heard it from, but I've read 2 things about entrepreneurship and owning your own business. Entrepreneurship is like jumping off a cliff and building a plane on the way down. And about the roller coaster of owning a business, the only time you get hurt on a roller coaster is if you jump off. So I know that there's going to be tough times and there's going to be lean times, but you're your own boss, and there's not a lot of people that'll take that risk. And so I applaud you for doing that. So
yeah, it's kind of funny the way this is different. From 2008 to 2012, I had a shoe store in Missouri, and it was like you'd look at the forecast and you're like, oh no, snowstorm is coming. and all of a sudden you may not make money that month because you're going to lose a couple days worth of business. And I remember when I went to AT&T, it was, I just get to clock in and clock out and make the same amount of money if I just show up. And so, I mean, I'd go years without missing a day because it was like, all I do is I clock in, I show up, and there's always a job there. In the cell phone industry, I mean, there's a line all day long at AT&T of customers to help. And so I've got a never ending stream of customers and a never ending stream of product to sell them. It was really, really enjoyable for that reason. But for the same reason I'm not there anymore, you have to answer to people that are unhealthy expectations and, you know, bad bosses and stuff, which drove me away. And so I say that to say, y'all that support the break group, it's kind of like that same way. Something's going on this Saturday. It's going to be a slow Saturday, or man, it's a really slow afternoon. We've only done X amount of dollars. I can post a break to bring money in, and that means a lot to us that we have people that support us that way too. So didn't have that in the shoe business. I couldn't jump online and post a break and get just getting money flowing so we can continue to buy product and pay employees. And so when y'all feel a break, it does something to my heart that y'all wouldn't understand. And so thank you for that. Or when you come to the shop and spend money, it does. I mean, support a local business, man. I'm telling you, the big boxes have enough money. You know, I find it really hard to go into anywhere flea market. You ask my wife, I'll go into a local business and be like, I can't leave without buying something.
Right.
Like, it's just in me. I like supporting local business.
Good for you. Good for you. All right. Well, that was awesome. Drop some questions. We're gonna go on for probably another 10 minutes, but if you've got a question, well, that was nice, Carson.
Yeah, Carson's too nice. I'm not the goat. I'm still learning. Carson, I'm still learning, man. I'm just trying to treat people right along the way. And
there you go. Well, like I said, we're going to start wrapping things up. But if you've got a question for Josh or I about the shop, Josh will handle that one. About the hobby, we'll try to answer that the best we can. But we're going to move on to the next section, which is card from the vault. So traditionally, I've gone first. I'm going to go ahead and keep that going. This guy had a big weekend in the soccer world. So this is Mbappe.
I've heard of the name. I don't know much about soccer, but I know the name.
So if Josh has heard about this guy, then you know he's big in soccer. Couple big things in soccer. They released the draw for the World Cup, and the United States is playing England the day after Thanksgiving. So there's not going to be any football. There's not going to be, and it's going to be televised in the evening in prime time. It's going to be the most watched soccer game in the history of the United States. I promise you. Nice. And so get into it. Get smart on soccer. This is probably one of the up-and-coming stars, if not the star of the soccer world, Mbappe. 9.5 SGC, going to hold on to this until after the World Cup. Hopefully he scores a gazillion goals during that World Cup.
Nice. Will, I sent you a picture. Will you post that for my little prep for my card? From the vault? And I'm going to, so Nicholas, thank you for that comment. I think Nicholas was in the store today and we got to talking about, you know, some cards to potentially grade. And I gave him a link to this podcast. So thanks for tuning in. And, you know, you got my number now. Text me if you have a question or something. So, so Jarrett, if you guys know the shop, you know Jarrett that works there. He sent me this picture during WrestleMania that Michael's going to put on the screen. So there it is. So who's that? Logan Paul? I don't even know who Logan
is. Yes, Logan Paul.
Around his neck, he is wearing a Pokemon Illustrator, I think a Pikachu Illustrator card. I assume it's a PSA 10 because Jarrett said it's the only one in the world and it's worth over $1 million. So he's got that around his neck. I'm assuming he wore that at WrestleMania. I'm going to watch WrestleMania as soon as it's available to stream. So that leads me into my card from the vault. It's not that. Yeah, Jake Paul or Logan Paul. I don't know the difference between them. Y'all have to tell me. So JP says 3 million.
Yeah, I think that's Logan Paul. Maybe. I don't know. I can't tell.
I can tell you for sure because Jarrett told me Logan Paul. So
there you go. Logan.
So yeah, so my card from the vault is actually a Pokemon card for once. This is a 2006 Gold Star Charizard Holo. It's from EX Dragon Frontiers. So I'll probably sound like a noob saying this, but we bought this raw at the shop, and I again looked over a couple years ago, looked it over really closely. It was worth about $150 when I bought it a couple of years ago. I noticed it was in unusually good condition for an 06, and I, on a whim, sent it to PSA, and it came back a 9. So we were looking up before the show. The last one brought $6,000. So the one before that brought 9,000, which makes me a little leery, but it's in that $5,000 to $9,000 range. Let's put it that way. So that's my card from the vault. JP asked if that was your card in SGC. It wasn't.
SGC 9.55555.
So you know that's a PSA 10 all day, probably.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's my card from the vault, a big Pokemon card. Not our biggest Pokemon card. Maybe that'll be next week.
There you go. All right. We got to get things going here. Next week, what is coming up in the shop? We've got Donruss Baseball, correct?
Yep.
Contenders Basketball.
Yep.
Big one. Encased Football. What is that? Is that one of the 1 card boxes, that Encased Football?
It's like a 4 or 5 card box, but one of the cards is a Beckett graded card.
Okay.
So it's a high-end, overpriced football hobby product. We don't ever get a ton of it, but it always sells well. To a couple of the big hitters like to buy it, and there's a high ceiling there because the product's expensive. So
Donruss Racing.
Probably not, but it is possible. Stay tuned. We'll see. So we can dabble in that sometimes.
And what I think is I'm a big sucker for just good looking cards. I think one of the most underrated sets every year is Phoenix Football, hands down. It always looks great, and if you can get a color match on Phoenix Football, it's a sexy card. It's fantastic looking card and a great value, right?
Yeah, they're not crazy expensive. They're not going to be cheap, of course, because nothing hobby football is cheap. But yeah, it's not crazy high. And then events coming up.
Yep, we got trade night. We're gonna go ahead and lock in that date of April 30th from 6 to 9. So be on the lookout for some details. We always try to do some quirky things. I think, Josh, last week you said the Plinko board will be back.
Plinko board will be back. We're going to use it maybe in a different way, and I've got some other new things to do to spice up this one. And Palmetto cards will probably be there, and if not, we will still be accepting for Palmetto cards. So if you have graded cards you want to get graded through PSA or SGC, bring them to that trade night, and you can hand them directly to Palmetto cards, and they'll take care of the rest. If you need more info, watch last week's podcast. You'll get a bunch of info.
We've got we're gonna wrap things up with crazy stat of the week. Josh, you go first on this one. This one was really cool.
Yep. So we all know the triple double in basketball. But did you know there's such a thing as a double triple double? That would be where you have 20 or more points, 20 or more rebounds, and 20 or more assists. That has been done 2 times in the history of the NBA. The players are Wilt Chamberlain and Russell Westbrook, who's been getting a little bit of negative press lately. So let's not forget, he's kind of the triple-double king. And at one point in April of 2019, he had a game where he had 20 points, 20 rebounds, and 21 assists. So I thought that was cool, a double, triple-double. But to top that, Wilt Chamberlain is the only one to have a quintuple double. This is 5 stat categories of over 10. So 53 points, 32 rebounds, 14 assists, 24 blocks. How do you block 24 shots in a game and 11 steals? I guarantee you he blocked those and then he caught it, and that probably counted as a steal. But
maybe.
A quintuple double I thought was pretty sweet and a pretty amazing stat.
That is crazy. My stat of the week is going to tie into WrestleMania and our news about the WWE. So I thought this was bananas, right?
It is.
33 million people tuned in to watch Hulk Hogan and Andre the Giant battle it out.
In what year?
And this was, let me read that. That was 1988. January 2nd, 1988. 33 million people watched that. Okay. To put that in perspective, in 2016, when the Cubs played the Giants, or the Cubs played the Indians,
which was an epic World Series.
Right. 40 million people watched that. It's so if you just think about how many more people had cable
streaming
services in 2016, and then 33 million people watched wrestling back in the day. That's how big this match was. It was crazy.
That would be equivalent to it has to be equivalent to like 100 million nowadays.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So could you imagine personalities this big, Andre the Giant, Hulk Hogan, if they made a splash today, those cards would be worth?
Yeah.
That would be crazy.
Well, we talked about Prism WWE has Hogan in it.
That's Hogan. So get you some. Yep. All right, Josh, I think that's it. We've kept everybody for just a little over an hour. You got any parting shots for our listeners out there?
No, remember, drop your name or your pick for tonight's game in the comments. You got about another minute to do so. Throw your pick in there, and whoever picks correctly will put you in a drawing for a $20 store or break credit. And if you like breaking, there's some stuff lined up for tomorrow, so keep an eye on the Facebook break page. We're going to be doing some breaking over the next couple days. We did get yours, JP. Don't you worry.
All right, Josh, it's always good spending Monday evening with you, brother.
Yep. Thank you, guys. Thanks for listening or watching.
All right, guys. Bye.
Peace.